Please welcome Kyle Kashuv, survivor of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School shooting.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hunt and the Western Conservative Summit for hosting me tonight. Because I'm a 17-year-old and I haven't accomplished nearly as much as the other speakers today, I'd like to give you a little bit backstory about me. I'm a junior at Stoneman Douglas, the shooting that occurred February 14th. During that day, I was in my fourth period class, just sitting there, when the shots rang in the other building. We immediately ran out in the hallways, and we heard more shots pop. We then ran back into the classroom and sat in the dark for 2 hours straight until SWAT took us out. Immediately after, the left mobilized to denounce the Second Amendment and vilify gun owners, but I wasn't going to let that stand. Because of that, I made sure to do everything in my power to protect the Second Amendment. That's why I'm here today. Present-day society, we're detached from reality. We're always on our phones and we don't have the time to connect with each other. And that also leads us to not really care about school shootings. We become desensitized to it. That's not okay. Your being at this conference is a symbol of your unparalleled love for the foundational elements on which our country was founded on. One of those fundamental beliefs is the Second Amendment. And at Turning Point USA, we're making sure to energize young activists to go out at their high schools and their colleges and to show their support for the Second Amendment while mobilizing the conservative base. We're making the leaders of tomorrow. And that's why on July 24th and 26th, we're hosting the High School Leadership Summit with huge name speakers such as Jesse Waters, Michael Knowles, and Anthony Scaramucci to talk there. The Second Amendment provides us the right to defend ourselves, and even more importantly, it poses a deterrent for a tyrannical government. Because we all know the first thing a tyrannical government does is it takes away the rights to bear arms for its citizens. This happened in Romania, in communist China, and most recently, Venezuela. We've seen this. And we've seen that the only way that we can ensure and protect the safety of our constituents is to have the Second Amendment. But here's the difference between America and every other nation. We have the essential liberty of the Second Amendment. And another thing that comes with that is our rightful mistrust of the government and our emphasis on self-preservation. Here's what happened at my school. Immediately after, the left mobilized and used this beneficial opportunity to push for gun control. They didn't waste a single second at all. The left, the mainstream media, and celebrities came out from everywhere, at every single corner, to push for gun control. Even more so, every single person knows the name of David Hogg and Emma Gonzalez, but you cannot name a single survivor of Santa Fe. There's a reason to that. It's because the left doesn't really care about school shootings. They care about using any opportunity to push for gun control, even though it's so illogical. But here are the facts about gun control. We have to know this so that we can make sure that we can properly argue and show the facts and to push for the proper policy. There are 36,000 gun deaths every year. 2/3 of those are suicides. The remaining 1/3 are homicides, in which gang activity constitutes a majority of that. But assault rifles only make up 3% of all gun deaths. Only 3%. And deaths by assault rifle, not by suicide, are 1% of all gun deaths. So banning assault rifles such as the AR-15 won't even do a dent to the overall gun crime that we have in the United States. Even the CDC, which is such a partisan hack, says there is an annual defensive use of guns between 500,000 and 3 million per year. Imagine that. So many more lives are saved by guns every year than are actually taken. And that's the difference between the right and the left. We view a gun as just an inanimate object, and that's what it is. But the left vilifies guns and gun ownership to an extent that is almost labels us as criminals. And that's wrong. Because law-abiding gun owners are one of the essential core of our nation. We believe that we should be able to defend ourselves because we don't trust the government. What's ironic is that the left wants to give away more of our rights to a government that is incompetent. So let's make America knowledgeable again. Here's what the left is entirely hypocritical about. Our courtrooms are protected by guns. Our airports are protected by guns. Our elected officials, yes, Democrats, are protected by guns. But you know who aren't protected by guns? Our children at our schools, because of gun-free zones. So we have to make sure that the first thing we do is get rid of gun-free zones. The only way to stop school shootings is to make sure we have a good guy with a gun to stop a bad guy with a gun. And we have to make sure that our children are safe again. All gun-free zones do is illuminate a target for a potential shooter and entices them to come in because they know that when they go to a school that has a blaring sign that says gun-free zone, they're not going to encounter any armed opposition. Because here, let's listen to some facts about this. In most school shooting incidents, when the shooter is confronted by another armed individual, they either flee or are killed in 98% of cases. But that's why shooters love gun-free zones. They love it so much because they know that when they get into that school, there will be no one who can stop them. Make America free of gun-free zones. So here are the facts about shootings in schools, okay? The first shots are fired, on average. All the shots are fired in the first 5 minutes. But the average response time to a school by the police department is 15 minutes. That means that there are a total of 15 minutes in which students can do absolutely nothing in these classrooms because there is no armed individual on the campus due to gun-free zones. So they sit there for 15 minutes at the mercy of an animal, okay? Because leftists want to make sure that we have gun-free zones. We have to make sure that there are properly trained individuals. They can be police, they can be resource officers, they can be even teachers who have the ability to defend themselves. We need to make sure that there is an armed individual capable of taking down a shooter at every single school because first responders are the ones who actually save lives. They are the ones who make sure and confront the shooter immediately, saving countless lives. We've seen this in many cases that go unreported due to the mainstream media not using it to push for gun control. We have to make our schools secure again. And here's how we do that. On a federal level, we can push for programs such as the Stop School Violence Act, which gave its first grant yesterday by Jeff Sessions. We're implementing actual policy change to secure our schools, and we're making it happen. But in reality, school safety is a state's matter. States have to be the one who create tailored policy to defend their schools. Including into that tailored policy, there have to be an end to gun-free zones, and we have to make sure that there are once again armed individuals on campus. The most important other legislation is making sure that we have single-point entry at every single school. It only makes sense. At TSA, in our courtrooms, we have X-ray scanners, and we have armed security who check every single baggage or every single piece that goes into that location. It's absolutely asinine that our youth are not as protected as our courtrooms or as our airports. The youth are the most important aspect of our society. And that's why at Turning Point, we're creating the next generation of activists. We have to make sure that we have mandatory school drills, and we have to make sure that we are hardening our schools to the extent that it is absolutely impossible for a school shooter to wreak havoc. We have to harden our targets, and by doing so, we are deterring school shooters, because there's one thing that a shooter loves. It's an unarmed target. We have to make sure that, in addition, we have to get rid of programs such as the Promise program, which recycle criminals back into our school system in order to synthetically reduce crime in order for schools to get more money by the federal government. That happened at my school. The shooter was in this Promise program, and he got recycled back into the school even though they knew he was a threat. This was listed by countless individuals at my school who knew who this kid was, who knew that he was a threat, who knew that he was an active possible shooter threat, and did absolutely nothing, because by the Promise program, they have to just be quiet and put it back in the system in order to make it seem like crime is on the decline. We have to make sure that we hold our incompetent government accountable. What happened at my school was absolutely reprehensible. There were 78 tips to the Broward Sheriff's Officer. I call them the cowards of Broward because they stood idly by and did nothing and let my peers die. There were 2 tips to the FBI, 2 tips, and nothing was done. The Child Protective Services did absolutely nothing. And even more so, the school has 4 huge boxes of records and reports on this kid, and nothing has been done. But there's more to that. In order to make sure our schools are secure again, it's up to us. It's up to the communities who we have such an essential responsibility to root out that corruption and incompetence. We have to hold the school board and police departments accountable. We have to make sure state policy is implemented. And we have to absolutely make sure that our kids are secure. But there's a second aspect to that. We have to make sure that we hold on to our Second Amendment rights. The Second Amendment goes absolutely hand in hand with school safety. In addition, we can't sit idly by. The responsibility of school safety is in every single one of us. It's our legislators, but it's us who force our legislators to actually do something. We the people, it's our responsibility to make sure that our children are safe. And that's why I've been active in the political sphere, endorsing and campaigning for politicians who will make sure this will happen. It's up to us to fight for tomorrow by the elections of today. And this starts with electing Austin Peterson, Ron DeSantis, and Nick Freitas. We have to make sure to make America safe again. Thank you very much.